I'm calling for unity. I know my husband, the president, had a great call yesterday with the governor and the mayor, and they're working together to make it peaceful and without riots. I'm against the violence, so if you protest in peace.
Chaos is erupting in Minneapolis as protesters and ICE officers are clashing following Saturday's fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. And now a Fox News digital investigation is finding that far-left agitators were already mobilized and tracking federal agents before that deadly confrontation, pushing anti-ICE rapid responders, they call them, to flood the scene and escalate tensions. It's raising questions about a possible coordinated action.
In this network are self-described socialist, Marxist, Leninists. They are indeed on the streets. They have guides on how to track, monitor, and harass these federal agents. Signal is where they sent many of their first responders, their rapid responders, as they call themselves, to the donut shop before the killing happened Saturday morning.
And I'd just like to add that it seems, at least for the time being, the situation has been de-escalated by the president a little bit. Tom Homan going up to Minneapolis, and the president was asked before he boarded Air Force One to Iowa whether or not he would fire Kristi Noem. The answer was one word. It was no. But he has spoken to Tim Walz, the governor of that state, and both sides said that they had a productive conversation. Having said that, let's look at what leads up to this, because I'm particularly fascinated by some of these signal conversations, how the far left activists coordinate the response, how they track groups potentially to know where they're going and then rally their troops, I call them, because I'm not necessarily sure that they're all there are layers of this in terms of sophistication. And sometimes the ones that are going out in the front lines seem to be the least sophisticated of the complete operation, but they dispatch them there to then cause chaos.
Yeah, I have a problem with them calling themselves rapid responders because it has a positive connotation. And here we are. This is not organic protest, which I think everyone would be in support of. This is organized interference, and they're alleging that there was unnecessary violence, and they're trying to combat that with more violence, right? Or agitation that is spurning this on. I mean, I was reading about the whistles, right? That's a well-known technique to sensitize people and get them on edge. So they're trying to provoke, agitate, and cause another event that then they can rally behind. So there's, like, I think you said it best. There's layers to this. There's levels. I think some people are unwilling or unknowing participants in some of it. But if you just spend a little bit of time looking at the signal groups, the level of coordination, I think there's something much more deeply rooted here. And the president is right to try and de-escalate, get Tom Homan in there, who we know is not someone who messes around, that deals with the facts, and really get to the bottom of this quickly.
And in the case of Alex Preddy, I don't want to get into the logistics of what happened. People have seen the videos. There's going to be an investigation. Let's stay aside from that for one moment until we know more about it and really dig into this idea, Brian, that these are coordinated efforts. It reminds me so much of the movements of anti-Semitism we saw sweep college campuses. And you said to yourself, where do they have the resources to get tents like this and to get all the things that when they did their campouts? How is this possible? How is it possible?
Yeah, there's guys like Neville Singham. I think that's his name. He's been well known in these campus protests, funding these things. He's affiliated with, he lives in China, or he's very sympathetic to China, and he likes to fund chaos here. I think it's actually, I would describe these networks in these cities as shadow governments. I think they're actually set up to do that. They marginalize the elected leadership in the cities because those guys dance to the tune of the protesters. Fry and Waltz, they're not in control. They're responding to the protesters. So they set up like shadow governments. They marginalize law enforcement. They collect data and then deploy that data to go after whoever the enemy of their party is. And they basically run the place. And that's really scary. Because if you're a law-abiding citizen in Minnesota, if you do crazy things like go to work every day and pick up your children from school, what you realize is that your vote and the rule of law doesn't matter where you live. What matters is the activity of this shadow government. And all of a sudden, you've been disenfranchised. That's how the law-abiding Minnesotan feels right now. So it's not just And they're like a roving government. They come to Minneapolis and they'll go to the next place when something else pops up. If you don't enforce the rule of law with these guys, they effectively become the government of that place. And if they do it in enough places, they become the government of this country.
That scares me. And
Yes.
then what about the real government, the real state government, the mayor and the governor of that state who almost are turning a blind eye to specifically what is going on here, because they're getting out and telling people to show up and to video and to be part of this in a peaceful way. I wouldn't say they were inciting violence in any way, but it's like they're not shutting them down either when they understand that federal law enforcement is coming here and has a job to do, which is, by the way, to remove criminals from the state.
But, you know, we're sitting in New York City, which has as its mayor one of these shadow guys you were talking about, used to be in the background. Now he's bringing all these people into City Hall who are now going to control New York. What concerns me, maybe it's just because I live here, but it's also because it's a much bigger city. Minneapolis is very small compared to what would happen in New York City if ICE decided to come in here and deal with the problem that we know exists of a lot of people involved in scamming projects. In fact, I've talked to a couple of, there are only 2 or 3 Republicans involved in city politics here, but you talk to them and they say what happened in Minneapolis is happening double time here. So being in a city where the people in charge are the people who used to be in charge of a lot of these demonstrations that very often become violent is kind of a frightening thing. Remember, by the way, where during the Biden administration, everybody from the Department of Homeland Security to the president himself used to talk about white supremacy.
Yeah.
Was the biggest threat to our democracy was white supremacy. I mean, that was so obviously just gaslighting a program that they actually had. This has been planned for a long time, and it's being put into place right now because they have you need a target, and Biden couldn't have been the target, but Donald Trump is. So he's the target, and they've got their operation in full order, and they got the money to back it up.